This is the Stopportunities podcast, and I'm Mark Morse. Today's guest is Darin Lynch, the CEO and Titan of Irish Titan. He built one of the most respected e-commerce businesses in the country, dating back to 2004, I believe,
Yeah.
well before e-commerce was even fashionable.
Yeah.
He's also worked inside major corporations, building e-commerce platforms and systems from the ground up. And I'm most excited about the conversation we'll have today because as an entrepreneur and a leader, he's lived in these moments where momentum pauses or sometimes breaks entirely, and something bigger or better comes from that pause. So Darin, welcome to Stopportunities.
Thank you, Mark. Appreciate the kind words, and I'm looking forward to the conversation. In our preamble, a few weeks ago when scheduling this, I was really intrigued by the concept, the Stopportunities concept. It's really interesting.
Yeah, it did not surprise me that we aligned on the philosophy behind that,
Yeah.
especially because we align on interest in sports and music
Right.
and entrepreneurship and leadership, et cetera. So
Right.
just add another one to that.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. A
and
lot
we'll
of Venn
get,
diagram amongst us.
yes, we'll get into your kind of version of that too, which I'm excited to share with our listeners. Tell me a little bit about kind of the origin of your entrepreneurial journey. What pulled you into that? Were you a born entrepreneur?
Probably born, and a little bit of exposure unknowingly to it. I grew up on a farm in Iowa. My mom was a teacher and a college professor. My dad started the farm, so it wasn't a generational farm.
Oh,
Started it from scratch and built up a pretty good sized farm. But when I was younger, I didn't really realize that that was entrepreneurship.
yeah.
I thought dad was just a farmer.
Hmm.
Like one day at elementary school, I think it was a kindergarten first day, and it was a small little town. Like the teachers, especially with my mom being a teacher, they all knew all of this. But you go through the routine, of asking the kids, "What do your parents do?" And I said, "My dad doesn't have a job; he's a farmer." So I didn't really, I think, process until later that the origin story, I guess, of Irish Titan was a combination of me knowing pretty early that I wanted to do my own thing. I'm sort of fiercely independent, don't take direction well, and knew I wanted to start my own business at a pretty early age. And then I started to layer on what I sort of through osmosis probably learned from my dad,
Yeah.
starting and building the farm.
So I love the connection to entrepreneurship and becoming a farmer, arguably one of the more difficult careers you can select, right?
Absolutely. I think that I have a lot of respect for really every profession. My mom and dad were very, very different, and we're all products of lots of things, but many of us are products of how we're raised and who we're raised around, and those things. And my mom and dad were very, very different people that had a tremendous marriage and taught my siblings and I the appreciation for a wide variety of people and professions, et cetera.
Mm.
And so I say that because I think that entrepreneurship sometimes is glorified at the expense of the nobility of other things. And I hadn't realized until growing older that dad starting the farm was just as much of an entrepreneur as any of us. And there are so many things outside of your control as a farmer,
Yeah.
weather and pricing and international, geopolitical, macroeconomic kind of tensions,
Yeah.
those sorts of things. I think that my respect for that profession has grown only over time.
Yeah. You think AI is disruptive,
Right.
all those elements.
Right.
So interesting.
Yeah.
Um, so let's go back to 2003 when you were right before you started Irish
Yeah.
Titan. Were there entrepreneurial moments that were signals that you were picking up? How did that happen?
Yeah. There was an arc to that moment or that era, I guess. Like I mentioned earlier, I knew at a pretty early age I wanted to start my own company. I think I was second or third grade. I came in from the living room having watched Batman, the old Adam West,
Really?
Bam, Pow,
Yeah.
Batman, and dad happened to be in from the farm and mom was home from school by then. And I said, when I grow up, I'm going to own my own company and I'm going to have a bat pole.
Hmm.
So from that stage, I think there was some clarity of what direction I was going. We do have a bat pole at our office.
Good.
We have
Check.
a fire pole, but we of course call it the bat pole. And so, I think that that was an inevitable outcome. But Dad and a lot of farmers, I think, tend to try to de-risk the advice they give their kids. And Dad was like, get a job
Mm,
with benefits, because he'd never had benefits, et cetera. So my first job was at Principal Financial Group, which was a fantastic job and fantastic company. I was there for almost 5 years before moving from Des Moines up here to the Twin Cities. And at that point, when we moved up here, I was 26, 27, and I just started to think about, okay, uh, where am I going? What's my path to starting my own thing at a certain point? I ran a Lawson Software consulting partner up here. Didn't run Lawson Software, a consulting partner.
yep, I
And
remember
one
that.
of our clients was Office Max. And in 1997, Office Max said that they wanted to launch their first e-commerce site. And I thought, that sounds interesting. I'll actually run that project. So I ran that project. When I look back now, I have no idea how the hell we launched an e-commerce site of that size and scale in 98, 'cause it launched a year later. And then I started to think, I think that this could be what I do. So then I went to Wilson's Leather and launched their e-commerce. And then I went to Second Swing Golf and launched their e-commerce. During that time, I completed my MBA at St. Thomas in venture management. And all of that converged to painting that picture of what I was going to do with Irish Titan. I actually had two different business ideas. One was a fitness technology product, and second was an e-commerce agency, what we've become.
Okay.
So there was that arc where I was accumulating more and more ownership, authority, responsibility, and agency for all of the e-commerce operations. For example, at Wilson's Leather, I had full responsibility for operations, but no P&L. At Second Swing Golf, the only
Yep.
reason I took the job was because I also got P&L, because I was trying to get off just operational. And then I felt like the story had sort of concluded, and I wanted to jump off the cliff and make my net on the way down.
Okay. Because you felt the interest in building, like building commerce systems for these organizations. It's innovative. It's kind of a leading edge.
Yeah,
Was it the sense of building or being on the front edge of something or a little both?
little of both, and there's a little more below the surface too. So technology appealed to me pretty quickly. Even though I mentioned growing up in a small town in Iowa, we had a great school. We were like an hour from Waterloo, University of Northern Iowa, and a lot of our teachers and staff had strong relationships with University of Northern Iowa. So we had a really good computer lab way back when I was in middle school, and so I got into technology and programming pretty early. And that appealed to me, except for what was sort of missing. So, for example, when I went to the University of Iowa, my first major was computer science. And I got kind of bored, not because I was the next Bill Gates or Steve Jobs, but because there was no business to it. It was all bits and bytes. So I switched over to MIS, kind of computer science light, through the business school.
Yep.
And then digital emerged when I was at Principal Financial, which sounds crazy to say because it's hard to imagine digital not,
I know
like,
it.
it's so pervasive now, you don't even talk about digital, right?
Yeah.
It just
I
is.
think you can see a little of that gray in your beard.
Right. My wife calls it pumpkin spice. But digital started to emerge. And so that I really liked because it was the convergence of three disciplines that are fluid, ever changing, kind of hard to describe to people who aren't familiar with them: design, technology, and marketing. So
Hmm.
digital really started to appeal to me, but I still felt like there was a little bit missing with trying to infer impressions and those sorts of things that weren't directly tied to business results.
Hmm.
And then e-commerce started to emerge, and that was the layer, that was the circle around design, technology, and marketing that was business focused. And so when I think about what I learned growing up on the farm, work ethic is a thing. Like, you work hard on farms.
Yeah,
And so
for
that's what
sure.
I've talked about for years when I get asked about what it was like to grow up on a farm. But what I've started to realize over the last few years, as we get older, we reflect on things differently, is I also really, I think, took away some valuable lessons in the practicality of farmers and the common sense that they try to embed in their kids and all of us. And so e-commerce to me was the common sense manifestation of that convergence of digital, or of technology, design, and marketing, because
Hmm.
our job at Irish Titan is to help our clients, who we refer to as merchants, create revenue and profit. And then that creates jobs, which is something I take a lot of pride in,
Yeah.
right? So that's really what was underneath the surface that connected my drive to start something and do something of my own and bear that risk, and then do so passionately in that vertical that I was really excited by for those reasons I just mentioned.
Okay. So a lot of people hesitate or don't even make the leap into entrepreneurship because of fear for one thing or another. Did you have any of those demons to wrestle at that phase?
Not really. There's probably many times in my life when I should have been more hesitant or fearful, but those were never my biggest challenges. Especially when I started to see the path after the Office Max project. I started to see, okay, I think this is what I'm going to go into, and my MBA was valuable. I'm not saying you have to have an MBA to
Yeah.
start your own thing, but for me, it was valuable with some of the lessons that I learned around venture management. That's what it was in,
Yeah.
entrepreneurial studies. So that helped. And by the time I was ready to start Irish Titan, I had some money saved up because I'd had a corporate arc, and I was ready to do it. There was really very little fear when I started Irish Titan, for
O-
better or worse.
Okay. Good. So the fear didn't start until you launched the
Correct.
business, right?
As you know, owning your own company is going to bed terrified every night and waking up petrified.
Exactly. Oh, that's so true. So let's go there for a minute. Were there specific moments where you sensed that disruption or sensed a break to your momentum? And what were those signals or what were those moments? And what did you do during them?
Yeah, I think moments plural is key,
Yeah.
right? Like I think that we've all I don't think you've been in business very long or you're not very cognizant of what you've experienced if there aren't moments plural, right? Because there are a lot of ditches and a lot of hurdles. And so when I was thinking about that topic, three examples, three moments come to mind. One is more like running into a wall, right? Like where it's financial, strategic, operational challenges that are existential. And two were more, there are doors to go through if I choose.
Hmm.
And so the more existential running into the wall was in 2017. We call it the Troubles at Irish Titan because we had grown really quickly and we had outgrown our tooling, our processes. We were technologically homogenous because we were dedicated to Magento as our only e-commerce platform that we were working with. So we were sort of subject to how well they did or didn't do.
Yeah.
And so that introduced some risk to us, even though by and large they were a good platform. So 2017 was a year that we had a lot of problems, hence the troubles.
Yeah.
We had clients that were unhappy, and we were shedding some clients. We had projects that were really challenged, that were over budget, past schedule, internal issues with executing what we'd committed to. We were experiencing turnover, which I think is a little bit different than attrition. Attrition is a little bit more organic, natural departures after a
Yeah.
certain season runs for somebody.
Yeah. Inhaling and exhaling,
Yep,
part of the
it
business. Yeah.
happens, right?
Yep.
Whereas turnover, I think, is caused by internal issues that as owners, operators, leaders, we want to try to minimize, if not eliminate,
Yeah.
so that people only leave for organic, natural reasons.
Yeah.
In 2017, we were experiencing a lot of challenges,
Mm.
and so those signals were very apparent.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's interesting. We work as entrepreneurs and business owners so hard at generating momentum, and it can take months and or years to get the engine to the speed you want,
right,
but it can stop in an instant.
correct.
And sometimes the biggest disruption is right within the middle of that momentum, which is the troubles you speak about, right?
Yep.
You've created amazing momentum. Now all of a sudden, you probably should peel back. You don't want to slow the business, but you want to slow the thinking enough so you can address some of those things.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think that we were growing so quickly, and I was personally running downhill so quickly. Because running uphill is one thing, right? That's when you're kind of in the grind trying to get it going,
Yeah.
right? Then once you have some momentum and you're running either level or downhill, you can still trip
Yeah.
and fall forward,
Great
which
analogy.
sometimes is actually more painful than falling when you're going uphill.
True.
And that's what was happening to us. And ultimately I bear all the responsibility, because at the end of the day, it's my company, and I'm in charge of hiring the right kind of people and leading them the right way and
Yeah.
protecting them and managing clients if they're being difficult, et cetera.
Yeah.
And yeah, we were running downhill and having all those problems that I think I hadn't taken stock of and anticipated because I was running downhill too fast and looking too far ahead and planning not necessarily too big, but managing to time blocks that were too long term and not near term.
So how'd you decide to fix it? What did you do?
Um, well, I was sort of forced to because we were in a rough spot. Um, like I said, we had clients that weren't happy. We had projects that weren't being executed. And by that point, which is a long time ago now, but by that point, we already had a reputation, and I had networks in the cities. And I don't take that for granted, right? Because
Yeah,
that
for
takes
sure.
years. It can change like that too.
Yep.
And so to some degree, the ships had been burnt on the shore, and I didn't have a choice but to figure out, okay, how do we fix this? And what I really started to do was manage to different time blocks, which I alluded to just a second ago, because I'd been thinking 6 months and a year out and trying to manage toward that. And I'd started to build a management team that I don't think I had set up for success. And so I started to worry less about 6 months and a year out and manage more to this week, and on good days during the troubles to this month. I would support the management team more hands on. I was more involved in projects, not trying to imply that I put my cape on and jumped in as a superhero, but
Yeah.
I had to get in there more to help them,
Yeah.
and support them and defend them sometimes against clients. So I think that the priority was really to focus on the here and now to some degree. I heard an analogy once that sometimes it's not about saving your house from being on fire, it's about saving the houses next to yours from being on
Mm,
fire.
that's good.
And there was some of that going on. Like there were certain projects I knew that we're not going to be able to fix this one. We're going to have to sacrifice this one. I'll have to figure out how to exit it gracefully,
Yeah.
and fairly, and then try to save those other projects, those houses next door.
Yeah. So you have one of the unique pieces of entrepreneurial success when you have an opportunity to sell the business. Someone's interested in buying it. Um, what were the signals at that point? When did that happen? And then we'll get to the second part of that story in a second. But
Yeah.
can you share what that was like?
Yeah. Actually, it was so long ago now, I don't remember the exact year. I think it was 2009 when I sold Irish Titan to the Platinum Group, a local private equity management consulting firm. And a number of our clients at the time had been their clients at the time too. That's how I got to know the team over there and really began working closely with them, enjoyed them. We were much smaller at the time, right? As you'd expect that long ago. And we've both been around lots of entrepreneurs who sometimes are unwilling to share in their success, and that stifles their growth.
Yeah.
And Platinum was interested in expanding their capabilities to start to account for more technological or technology and particularly e-commerce capabilities. And so we started to have the conversation, and it felt like something that I should explore. So that was 2009. Uh, 2011 was when I bought Irish Titan back. And, I mentioned earlier that there were 3 moments of stillness,
Yeah.
and the troubles were where we hit the wall. 2011 was one of those other two out of the 3 moments where there was
Mm,
a door to go through if I so chose. And that was the year I started to realize that I wanted to buy Irish Titan back. Um, Not because of any problems with Platinum. I learned a lot working with that team. And Irish Titan grew. I helped them with their clients because while they owned Irish Titan, I was part of Platinum Group, and I spent half my time running Irish Titan, half my time doing Platinum work. And so when I started thinking about buying Irish Titan back, it was sort of visceral and lizard brain at that time. And so I needed to think why I wanted to buy it back so I could articulate that in a way that wouldn't seem short-sighted, disrespectful,
mm,
emotional, so that it'd be hard to argue against it, right? Because if you live and speak from principle, it's hard to argue against people, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so in 2011, that moment of stillness was I met Simon Sinek in a small group setting here in town.
Oh, cool.
There were like 20 of us
Yeah.
that met him in person and had
Fun.
drinks afterwards. And if I were dramatic enough to say that changed my life, I'd say that changed my life
Okay.
because in the first 5 minutes of speaking with, or of him talking through his start with why golden circle model, I drew Irish Titan's golden circle,
Hmm.
which the why and how remain true to today. I won't go down that rabbit hole, but that also illustrated for me that I needed to figure out my personal why, because that would be the reason that I would buy Irish Titan back. And it took me a
Oh.
few months to figure that out. It
Hmm.
was to leave a legacy. Like I started Irish Titan
Oh.
to leave a legacy. I started to figure out how I wanted to continue to grow Irish Titan as it would relate to my legacy. I tried to carry myself with how I raised my daughters to leave a legacy. And so that to leave a legacy is my personal why. And that is what then I used to guide my conversations with Platinum Group to reacquire Irish Titan.
Hmm.
And those conversations went great. Like um, there wasn't a lot of argument they could have when I could lay it out like that, and we could come up to numbers that we felt were fair, and went out and celebrated with the dinner after I reacquired it, just like we went out and celebrated with the dinner at the same place
Oh,
when I
really?
sold it.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's great.
yeah,
Good. Yeah. Flip the pages on that chapter.
right.
I love the leave a legacy as your why, um, as it relates to things other than spin a profit, maximize growth, et cetera, et cetera. It's all about a more meaningful, purposeful why.
Yeah,
Yeah.
very much so.
Yeah. Love it.
Yes.
Um, So you and I shared this as we talked about a couple of weeks ago, setting up this notion in the book. I refer to Stopportunities as those moments where we spot disruption coming, and there's a framework called pause. Um, and I draw the analogy, and we've talked about the fermata in music. And the fermata is that music symbol in composition. It's a technique that forces the orchestra, the band, the music, the silence to suspend for a minute,
Hmm.
to pause. And great leadership needs pauses like that for us to think through what that disruption might mean, to regain the momentum or find a bigger, better next move within that stillness. And that's when you shared that you have your version of that called hitting the pause button or the snooze button.
Right.
So tell me about how you landed on that and how you deploy the snooze button in business.
Yeah, I think I'm guessing something we both share is lifting or borrowing, stealing things from outside of business to apply to business, right?
Yes.
Music, sports, etc.
Yeah.
And I remember one morning, I don't know what prompted it, but I hit snooze on my alarm, which I normally don't really do. I'm not a snoozer, but hit snooze. And I remember later thinking, hey, there's probably an analogy there to be leveraged. And I didn't even really know where to place it yet. But that was sort of the origin of hitting snooze.
Okay.
And I have learned to hit snooze over the years because I think most entrepreneurs are wired for action.
Yeah.
Sometimes momentum, regardless of whether it's forward or in reverse, right? There's action. We usually tend to be somewhat decisive. And I definitely have those sorts of traits. So I think that me learning to hit snooze has helped me temper some of my tendency to move too quickly,
Yeah.
right? And so there have been times where I was upset about a project or a prospect or read an email that sends me flying off my Irish handle, and hit snooze. Okay, I'm not going to reply to this now. I'll reply to it later or overnight, even sometimes. And especially on the emails, if I consciously say, I'm going to hit snooze on this, that almost always pays off
Yeah.
in emails for me
Yes.
because I don't need to hit snooze unless I'm kind of torqued off,
Yep. And it's easy to get torqued off by misinterpreting the emotive
Totally.
power of email.
Right?
Right. Yes.
Exactly. So it's worked really well in those regards. And then in a broader sense, it's worked well in those other moments of stillness, which you can guide if we go to another one. But like I've also hit snooze, used the fermata, used the margin on the page,
Yeah.
whatever analogy you want to make for a couple of other bigger decisions and moments of stillness too.
Are there certain things that you look for when you decide to pause versus push? Is it kind of that gut as a leader, and which gets more and more refined the more and more we're in business, and you know the we know a thing or two because we've seen a thing or two.
Right.
Are there certain things that you automatically know? You know, this one I need to slow up on, like email,
Yeah.
or where you feel I just need to. I've seen this 1,000 times. I'm just going to close
It's
this one.
more the latter now.
Yeah.
I think that if lots of times we get asked, "What do you wish you would have known earlier?" Kind of things, and mistakes you would have avoided. I don't know if learning a lot of things earlier would have helped me. I think I kind of needed to earn my mistakes, right? But I think that the instincts we have now, honed over time, are based on those mistakes.
Yeah.
I
Sure.
read, I forget what leadership article it was, but I guess there was some famous fire chief in, I think, Philadelphia, who was revered for his ability to know when everybody needed to leave a burning building, that it was going to implode or go to hell. And it wasn't that he was a wizard or a magician. It's that he had honed his senses over the years to the point where
Hmm.
he couldn't really articulate it, but it was the combination of smell and sound and the way the air was moving that helped him have a really refined sense for that. That was kind of like a well-known thing, right?
Yeah.
So our spidey sense, knowing when we got to hit snooze, is, I think, like that too, right?
Yep.
Um, I think that again, email is easy because if I'm standing there because I have a standing desk and get pissed off at an email, then like that's a pretty easy emotion to recognize. I think that the other moments that drive that pause or the fermata are when I feel like we're on our heels and not our toes, um, or that we can't speak to and define our actions and decisions from places of principle, and instead it's reactive or for optics or
Yeah.
rushed.
Yeah.
When I feel either of those sort of circumstances are true, that's when I feel like, hey, we gotta hit snooze,
Yeah.
get back on our toes, make sure we're doing the right things for the right reasons that we're in charge of.
Yeah. Yeah. I love the analogy of the snooze because it's like a fermata. It's not you're not stopping.
Right,
Business needs to continue.
right,
And the notion and principle is not we're going to put the brakes on business. We're going to continue business from the day to day to continue to produce, but we have to make sure that it's going in the right direction. It's like the 2-minute timeout, to use another analogy.
right,
We need 7 points, not a field goal.
right.
So let's call a timeout. Let's all align. So we're moving in the right direction. If you miss by an inch versus a mile, a miss is a miss, right?
Yep.
So
Yeah.
to that end, I think personally, uh, we talked a little bit about some of the AI things you're working on. Our business is transforming almost everything we do with that as our kind of um, key component for transformation. Um, I'm curious how you temper the culture we're in today, which is speed, 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 because there's more tools coming at us every single day that make us go faster, 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 faster.
Yep.
Um, any ideas or thoughts around that?
Yeah. Um, I think I can tie that to an earlier comment that I was intentionally brief on when I mentioned Irish Titans Golden Circle. Irish Titans Why, and Start with Why, the Simon Sinek book and Golden Circle model, is business first, online second,
Yeah.
which means, as I used to say, hint of foreshadowing, it's not about bits and bytes or pixels or keywords. It's how we get to know your business. And then and only then do we bring our talents to bear to help you grow your business. Now I've changed that to say it's not about AI, bits and
Mm,
bytes, pixels or keywords. It's about how we get to know your business and then bring our talents to bear.
yeah.
And so I think that business first, online second sort of philosophy has helped us remain grounded and not prone to recklessly adopting the jazz hands frothy nature
Hmm.
of the AI frenzy. But because we're in technology, we have to be on the leading edge, maybe not the bleeding edge. I try to avoid the bleeding edge, but we still need to be on
Yeah.
the leading edge of technology. And AI is a tool,
Yeah.
right? I think I would be irresponsible as a leader and as a business owner in our space if I weren't adopting AI. I think that there are some thought leaders that I read and follow a lot, like Scott Galloway, who I'm sure you
Yeah.
know. Like I love his content. I don't always agree with it. I usually do, but not always. But that's good, right? It's provocative.
Yep. Absolutely.
That's the whole point. And I think he was the one that first said that you're not going to lose your job to AI. You're going to lose your job to somebody who knows how to use AI better
Hmm.
than you.
Hmm.
So that was an early framing for us. I think that I've also, over the last year or so, become more and more explicit internally about how let's think about AI in two different ways. One, how we're using it to do our jobs, because AI is at its best when it helps do blue collar work for white collar workers or green collar workers, as I would say, of course.
Nice. Yep. Well played.
So that's one of the strengths of it. And then it's also at its best when you think about it as a tool that helps us be scalable, right? I
Hmm.
still want to grow Irish Titan. And if AI can help us do that more effectively, give our clients a better experience, help our Titans spend their time, talent, and treasure on the things that give them most energy and add most impact to the business, that's great.
Yeah.
And so we focus on how we can use it internally. And we've been separating that thought process and that thought leadership from how we're incorporating it into our external client facing services, because
Nice.
agentic commerce is a big thing in our space. And we've broken that down to structured data, agentic discovery. So if you go to ChatGPT or Claude and search on green basketball shoes or a guitar, whatever example you want to provide, that you show up in the results. That's the discovery piece, which is distinct from agentic checkout, which
Mm,
would be buying in one of those chat bots.
I see.
And so breaking it down into those three, after breaking it down from internal and external perspective, has helped us, I think, do a pretty good job on how we've incorporated AI. But it's a lot to deal with. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, for sure. I'm curious, when you embrace a new technology or process and add that onto your existing services, deliverables, it oftentimes can feel overwhelming to the team. It's like,
Hmm.
we have to do this in addition to everything else. So if you pair that with the notion of sometimes you have to look at your stop doing list and what are those things as a business you need to stop doing?
Yep.
Um, can you identify with some things that you may have discontinued, either currently as you're going forward or over the history of Irish Titan?
Yeah, I think that having been in the space for a long time, we've been through a lot of the eras of e-commerce, from when things were just monolithic, like when I mentioned that we were a Magento only
Yeah.
shop at one point, and then I started to see the troubles in 2017 sort of motivated me, and were part of the exploration I did to add some other platforms. And so when I started to go down that path, I saw the emergence of on the horizon of SaaS platforms like Shopify and BigCommerce and those sorts. So we became a Shopify partner, I think, in 2018 and BigCommerce 2019. And so we started to distance ourselves from Magento's monolithic architecture. So that'd be something that we decreased in priority, and we do at a much smaller scale now.
Yeah.
We were a dev only kind of shop for a long time, building
Yeah.
sites, because you could build a healthy business
Yeah.
doing that.
I remember that.
And then I started to see, as we were a Shopify, BigCommerce, and SaaS partner for years, I started to see the maturation of those platforms. And to their credit, their tools have advanced and matured and been amplified to the point where if you use their tools the right way, you can build a pretty comprehensive, complex site with long legs. And so I thought that that was probably going to reduce the shelf life for a dev only kind of agency. So we started to diversify into e-commerce marketing.
Mm,
So when I'm asked what Irish Titan does, I say we build and grow e-commerce channels. The build piece is pretty self-explanatory, building the sites. The grow reference is referring to the e-commerce marketing work that we do, email, paid search, SEO. So that's grown a lot for us.
mm.
And so I think that we have morphed. We've never really pivoted, because I think we've had good by my definition of pivot, where you become somebody else.
Yeah.
We've been on this e-commerce path. We've, I think, adapted to and adjusted to the different eras as they come and go.
Yeah.
And AI is the new one. And we're all forced. And I think I've had less resistance internally to adopting AI than I did, for example, when we added Shopify and big commerce. I didn't
Mm.
do a great job painting a picture internally as to why we're adding new platforms. And so there was more resistance. It was sort of that typical, oh, great, the boss went to a conference and didn't come back. And, now we're going to have to do all the things that he heard about this conference.
Exactly. Oh, great.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly. And so I had more resistance during those times. I think the pervasive headline grabbing nature of AI has helped create some appetite or at least willingness to explore it internally.
Yeah.
So face less resistance. It's been a little bit more, how do we corral it? What kind of governance do we need? How do we incorporate it appropriately?
Yeah. So as you think about the listeners and other leaders and entrepreneurs, are there things that you would recommend leaders consider or entrepreneurs consider they stop doing in today's era? If you fast forward 5 years and how businesses need to navigate the terrain to get wherever they're headed.
Yeah. Well, real briefly, just to put a bow on the AI conversation, think about it as a tool. AI, for the sake of AI, isn't going to be a magic wand or a magic 8 ball or a crystal ball. It's a tool. You got
Yeah.
to incorporate it, and it's difficult because it's changing so much and so fast at the same time. It's
Yeah.
like trying to operate by an analog clock and a digital clock, and both are operating at different speeds.
Yeah.
So that can be difficult. Another thing that I have observed over the last few years, culture is such a big topic
Yeah.
now. And when we first met, I think we had really well defined cultures before culture was a thing, right? It's just
Yeah.
because I think that we had some self awareness and things that mattered to us, principles we wanted to live by, et cetera. And that sort of seeps into a culture. I think a lot of leaders and a lot of companies are making a mistake in recent years when they try to define their culture instead of identify their culture,
Mm.
right? Because if you define your culture, which can sound good if I don't explain this very well, I think you're trying to label the culture that you want it to be instead of identifying the culture that it is.
Yeah. Great delineation. Love
Yeah.
that. Yeah. And how do you split those?
Yeah.
I think the people contribute to it, and rather than forcing your culture on
Right.
the team, it's how are they building it as part of
Right.
this team or orchestra?
That stillness back in 2011 that I mentioned when I was exposed to Simon Sinek, and Start With Why, really, that's when I identified our culture. I'd taken a step back from Irish Titan. I mean, I was still totally active every day, but I had enough of a team around me. This was before the troubles, so we were still smaller, right? But I had enough of a team around me, and we are definitely running downhill, but we were running downhill on our toes, not our heels.
Yeah.
And so I took a bit of a pause to take some advice from Guy Kawasaki in his book Art of the Start,
Yeah.
and get a sense of, okay, who are we? What are the things that are shaping us when we're doing well? What are the same things that are shaping us when we're not doing well? That's what helped identify our golden circle. It's also what helped identify our 5 core values: POTUS, which isn't a political statement. It's passion, ownership, teamwork, impact, and skills.
Okay.
So those were our 2 lighthouses, as I've referred to them since then.
Yeah.
And as culture became a big thing, and I'd be asked to speak about it, people would say, well, define your culture. I said, well, I never really defined our culture. I identified our lighthouses
Yeah.
that were representative of what worked well for us and what didn't, helped us stay on track. And that's worked well for us for a long time now. Those 2 haven't changed.
Yeah. I love that. Those truths remain in play today, even after some of the.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And
That's the
those have,
sign of identifying a powerful culture.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, through, probably a lot of luck, quite honestly. Like, I think that speakers, books matter to us when they're timely. And when I was fortunate enough to meet Simon Sinek and hear his speech, I was consciously processing some things right then. And that led to the golden circle because I was conscious of these things, right? So
Yeah.
it was timely. And they're, I think, really vibrant and resonant without being shifty, right? Like,
Mm.
I can describe our lighthouses really well and really consistently, and our titans can understand them and then use those to guide themselves and guide their teams and guide each other. Like,
Yeah.
I've heard time and time again by now, comments are read in Slack, our internal messaging tool. Oh, that's not business first, online second. we've got to do a better job of that. I got a text just last week from one of our clients who's using a different team for this other technology they're implementing. And he said, I want you to know how much I appreciate your business first, online second mentality, because I've been spending weeks trying to get this other partner just to understand our business and they don't care. Like that matters.
Yeah, absolutely. So speaking of AI in business first, online second, let's talk about the impact of AI in culture, especially a culture that's so identified like yours. When you consider implementing AI into an organization, and if you use that as a tool and look at how it can affect and have implication to all sorts of roles and tasks within the business, which can then be consolidated into certain new roles or even role removal in some instances.
Yep.
How do you view that dynamic?
Yeah, that's definitely a threat, that threat of AI.
Yeah.
And one thing I haven't mentioned yet, I know we've talked about over the years, but we have a Titan only model, meaning we do all of our work with just our Titans, our employees.
Yeah.
And so we don't use any contractors, freelancers, or offshore resources. There's nothing wrong with those models. I was just intentional with how I crafted ours. And so a Titan only, employee intensive sort of company can be, I think, even more prone to the fear of being displaced by AI.
Sure.
Right. And so that's one of the reasons that Scott Galloway's comment about you're not going to lose your job to AI, you'll lose it to somebody who uses AI better than you was so poignant for me 3 or 4 years ago when I first heard that, because I wanted our Titans to absorb that and think of that, because I didn't want to eliminate roles. I want to continue to grow Irish Titan. And speaking from a business perspective, the more scalable you are, whether it's because of AI or whatever the tool is, that means that the less headcount, the less fixed cost you have to add as your business grows.
Yeah.
And so I want us to always become increasingly scalable over time. That's just good business.
Yeah.
And AI is part of that. So I needed to make sure there was an appetite for exploring AI without resistance, passive or explicit, to it. So that's why I had those sorts of conversations early. I would say over the last year to year and a half, and it's accelerating right now, we are spending a lot of time on capitalizing on automating mundane tasks and automating some of the flow between disparate systems in different parts of our process. So we are capturing requirements in the sales process more clearly and cleanly that are now more easily getting moved into our requirements documents and in the project kickoff and in the project management software because of AI. Some of it's the AI capabilities built into the tools, and some of it's the way we're leveraging third-party AI tools to connect them.
Yeah.
So that's helped from a scalability perspective. And I feel like we have some really good work that our Titans really are doing and leading more so than I am on how we're achieving that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that its effect on workforce is a big topic in general, right? But as far as how it affects culture, I really think it's important to make sure that people understand how leadership is viewing AI as a tool or not, because there are other companies that are, I think, more blindly adopting AI. We have technology partners that are public about the fact that you have to use AI for your job, and if you can't explain why you can't use it, you won't be here.
Yeah.
And that's not our culture, but it's pervasive out there.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting the enormity of this transformation on businesses of all sizes, enterprise, large global businesses. If you look at in our business practice areas and identify standard operating procedures and how we can be more efficient and do more with that team because of the tool of AI. But not only within those areas, how other interdependencies happen between functions in a business. So how does accounting now work with the account group? And how are we generating and capturing time? All of those things. It forces a massive retraining above and beyond just the craft of doing what you do.
Right. It's kind of business first, online second, right? Or business first, AI second. Like, I think that that how we incorporate AI into our businesses, regardless of what our business is, whether it's businesses like ours or a manufacturing company or whatever it might be, I think is reflective of how well you run your business, and how well
Yeah.
you know yourself, and how you prioritize different parts of your business, your people versus your product, those sorts of things.
Yeah.
So I think that it's a challenge right now, but it's also revealing some things. Like one of the things I talk about a lot internally, and just saying in a different external conversation, is given AI and how it has accelerated access to information and data, and sort of leveled the playing field. Tactics have never been cheaper, and strategy's never been more valuable.
Mm.
And so that's another way that I've tried to position AI for us at Irish Titan, is for everybody to understand, hey, this is a way for us to shine strategically, because we're able to leverage the AI tools to do our work more scalably, or in a more scalable fashion, or just approach things differently. So we're free to leverage the insights we have as
Yeah.
an e-commerce leader of industry prominence.
Hmm. Yeah. And I keep coming back to that Galloway comment around you losing a job to somebody who knows how to use AI better.
Hmm.
Um, there's knowing how to use AI requires intentional, purposeful time,
Yeah.
not only spent on learning the latest tools, but as leaders, carving out time for our culture and our organization to learn that.
Right. And
And often,
supporting them in that.
yeah, and that in and of itself can be kind of a pause,
Yeah.
a fermata moment,
Yeah.
right? So if we don't allow that, then we're not setting our teams up for success. We're likely staying a little more inefficient than
Hmm.
driving efficiencies. Um, how do you think about that?
Yeah. I think that we do have to support that. And I think we also have to model that to some degree.
Yeah, great point.
I think that there are a number of Titans that are light years beyond me in how they're leveraging AI. But I'm using things every day, and I'm testing out some Claude AI compared to Chat GPT right now, because of some of the things that Claude has made a lot of advancements on
Yeah,
in the last 6 months. And you talked earlier about SOPs. Well, I think that the Claude versus Chat GPT example demonstrates why it's challenging right now with SOPs and governance, but they're required because the tools are changing so fast.
yeah,
I remember 6 months ago there was a tool that a lot of my peers were like, "This is the tool. You got to use this tool." That tool's already gone.
yeah.
It was great for about 2 or 3 months until someone else came along that either stole their IP or maybe ripped it off or whatever, and then that
Hmm.
tool died on the vine. But it was great for a while,
Yeah,
And so I think that's part of the challenge for us as leaders, to support that testing, give people some breathing room, to experiment, to scrape their knees a little bit, have some level of guardrails so that we're not doing things that are antithetical to our cultures, our companies, the experience we want to give clients,
yeah,
and then do all that within the fast-paced change of AI.
yeah,
That's yeah,
yeah. There's hardly a week goes by where our CTO is not asked for a subscription by a group of employees for a new AI tool.
yeah,
And so the
right,
governance is real. And if you commit to something and you budget for something, and then something else comes along
right,
that's this much better, you have to weigh the cost of it. What is the improvement of this gap?
right.
Is it worth it? There's a culture implication of, is it worth it? Are we going to um, deter our culture from trying the latest and greatest, or are we leaning into this
Yeah,
and making it a lab?
and how
So
you thread that needle,
yeah, exactly. Super hard.
Another adjacent example that I'll share that I was blown away by a couple weeks ago. Um, this was relayed to me by one of our software partners. They had a deal. We weren't involved with this prospect, but this prospect ended up choosing someone else other than this technology partner of ours. And the technology partner did an autopsy, like we all do sometimes. Like, we thought we had this deal. Can you help me understand why we didn't get it, so that I could maybe learn from it? And turned out to not be pricing, turned out to not be the team,
Mm,
turned out to not be the technology, turned out to be that the platform partner, the technology partner that they chose, had an impressive demonstration of how they've leveraged AI to create better project and engagement experiences. Not necessarily a better tool, but how they're leveraging AI in their client-facing engagement experience
Yeah.
for a better experience on behalf of the client.
Yeah. Smart.
So they lost to this competitor of theirs just because of how that competitor incorporated AI, not just into their pitch, but into
The
their
experience.
process.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Really smart.
Yeah.
Yep. So I love how you think as a leader, and how you embrace this next generation of our businesses. Um, if you were to put, going back to our music analogy, if you were to put a song on your leadership style today or over the years, is there a song or artist that represents you?
Yeah. I'm glad you gave me a little bit of heads up on this.
That was a leading question. Yes.
Right. To break the third wall. Is that right? The right analogy?
That's right.
Because as a music guy, I would have wanted to have an answer here. And I thought about this long and hard, actually. And then I had a bit of an epiphany because another one of my models is that I think that businesses that are founder involved mature from being founder run to founder managed to founder led. So founder run is when like the founder's in there doing the work,
Yeah.
right? They might not be doing all of it because like when Irish Titan started, it was myself and a Titan named Tegan Snyder, and he did everything, all the design, the development. I did everything else, right? But that's the founder run because you're running it hands-on. Founder managed, you start to direct people, not necessarily with a management team around you, but you start to manage more.
Yeah.
And founder led, you're more hands off. You have a management team. You're executing maybe at a higher, more strategic level. Okay.
Okay.
So when that came to me, then I started to realize what songs might best reflect that.
Yeah.
And there's a Kiss song, "It's My Life," which is just on a box set. It was never on one of their main albums, but it's a fantastic song. Should have been on an album.
Love that you use Kiss.
Yep. Yeah. I'm a big Kiss fan.
Good.
Never outgrew it. And I think that they're an underrated, misunderstood band. But now I'm starting to, it's like you suckered me into going on a rant.
Yep.
Got any boneless chicken wings handy? So anyway, "It's My Life" is about like defiance and grind, and I'm going to do it my way in the spirit of adversity. And so in early Irish Titan days, and I think in early founder days, that's the way we run our businesses because all the odds are against us. All the statistics would say don't do that, right? And then you continue to do it. And so I think that is really relevant to that founder run era. "It's My Life." Great song. Look it up.
Yeah.
Second song, everybody will know these next two songs. During the founder managed area, "You Can't Always Get What You Want" from the Stones.
Yep.
Because you start to realize that you're not first degree doing everything. You're trying to lead through people, sometimes through force, sometimes through more grace, and not always doing it well. And learning that you're not always doing it well, right? So you start to learn you can't always get what you want. And then I think when you hit that founder-led phase, I would say "My Way" from Frank Sinatra.
Oh.
And not because it's about like doing it my way from an ego kind of perspective, but if you actually listen to that song, and I'm a giant Frank Sinatra fan, like I'm a giant fan of all three of those bands. I saw Frank Sinatra in concert actually, which was probably one of the last concerts he had.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Chairman. Love it.
yeah. Like in that song, he speaks about making mistakes and having regrets and having learned along the way, but that he did it his way with sort of conviction and purpose and principles. And I think that when you're in that founder-led phase, leading through some of the principles like Golden Circle or POTUS or whatever your lighthouses are.
Yeah.
You don't get there without making mistakes. And you don't stay there and operate there if you're not sort of reflective on that and still doing it with conviction. So
Yeah.
I would say today it's my way, not because it's my way or the highway, but because it's what I've learned along the way to build that conviction.
Yeah. The power of the gray. Love it.
Yeah.
Two quick stories. So on "You Can't Always Get What You Want," I believe that the seedling to that song goes back to Minneapolis when I don't know if you've heard this story or
No,
not.
I haven't.
Mick Jagger was on a park bench in Minnetonka, on Lake Minnetonka, and an older gentleman named Jimmy something. In the song, there's a Mr. Jimmy that's represented lyrically somewhere in it. Jimmy said, and they were conversing back and forth, and Jimmy said something, well, if you try real hard, blah, 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 blah.
Really?
And led to you can't always get what you want, but if you try real hard. So I think that should be fact checked.
Yeah.
But that a friend of mine
Never let the facts get in the way of a good story.
That's true. That plaque right over there was gifted to me by the guy who told me that story.
I
So,
didn't even see that when I
Yeah.
name checked the song.
yes.
Yeah.
Listeners, there's a plaque that says that exact Rolling Stones quote right on the wall.
That's great.
So, and then the Kiss reference is amazing. That goes back. I'm a huge Kiss fan as well over the years. Do you remember the album that they came out with when they first had their makeup removed?
Yeah.
What was
Lick
it?
it up.
Lick It Up, ladies and gentlemen. So I remember my mom was a huge fan of me and my music endeavors. And I remember playing the song Lick It Up for her.
Yeah.
And I couldn't tell if she really knew what the song was about or she was just supporting me
Yep.
by saying, oh, yeah, I can see how that's talking about overcoming challenges.
Yep. Yep. I have those
So
moments
great.
too with some Kiss songs. I won't name check them because then
Yeah.
you might know what the lyrics are about, and I don't want that covered in your Stopportunities podcast. But I remember, the song "Parasite" from early Kiss.
Oh, yeah.
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 So that has triplets to it, and Mom used that song because she knew how much I love that song. My mom was a piano teacher, also.
Yeah.
She used that song to help teach me triplets.
Yeah.
But yeah, Kiss, "Lick It Up," 1983.
Yep. To close out the music metaphor and reference, I always align my music or my leadership style to Miles Davis, who, if you study Miles, and I spent a lot of time studying jazz and Miles, he was a master band leader in that he would recruit the best players he could possibly find for that time and fully embrace the fact that they're not going to be with him together forever. But when they're together, they're going to make some magic happen.
Oh,
I used to get wrapped around the axle when one of my best teammates would leave.
yeah.
And I would almost take it personally as a founder and a business owner.
Yeah.
But then I started to understand this Miles principle around, they won't be here forever.
Right.
And if they have the drive to want to go do something, they feel their own Stopportunity, then fuel it and let them go do that.
Yeah.
So that really changed how I manage and lead people. And the other thing I really valued about Miles is he has a quote where real music happens between the notes.
Yeah, right.
Notes, right. And he even wrote one of his albums called Miles Ahead. It's two sides, one track that goes the entire distance. They change songs, but there's always music playing that you can hear the other members of the band just kind of take a pause. So it's almost like the opposite of a fermata, but the principle of pausing is still within it. So
What's
it's
the
just
name
kind
of
of
that?
called Miles Ahead.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So love me some Miles Davis.
Yeah,
For
I'll have to
right
check. Obviously, I know who Miles Davis is. That's a genre I've never really connected with or gone very deep into. But sometimes this is all it takes.
Yeah.
Right? You hear a story like this, and you start to relate to it and process it a little bit differently.
And a forewarning, it is the polar opposite of Kiss.
Yeah,
So,
true. Yeah, I am familiar enough with it to know that.
well, Darin, this has been fantastic.
Yeah, it's been fun.
I appreciate your time and sharing your amazing leadership and entrepreneurship and mindset with our listeners. I look forward to hearing how depressing the snooze button helps your next move.
Yeah,
So,
and hopefully I calm down enough by my natural nature that I have to hit it less on email responses.
exactly. Well, thank you, Darin Lynch, the Irish Titan. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. I enjoyed this, Mark. Good luck
Yeah.
with Stopportunities.
Thank you.
Thanks.